Hi, and welcome to Dare to Be Authentic podcast. I'm your host, Maury Mitchell, and I have a very special guest today. His name is Tim Campbell. He's a writer, and he writes stories, true ones, about fatherhood, travel, and other things, such as experiences in the Peace Corps and his working world. He's going to be here to talk about his newest book, and I'm really excited to have him today. Welcome to the show, Tim. How are you doing today?
Thank you. Thank you, Maury. I'm doing fine. Thank you very much for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. So, tell us a little bit about your inspiration for your writing.
Well, I think the major storm in my life had to do with birth of a child who, at the age of 5 days, was stricken by a viral infection of the heart and wasn't expected to live. The
Wow.
doctor, when I admitted her, said he later that he had given her a 1 in 10 chance of making it through the first night.
Wow.
And so I knew my life had changed then, that things were never going to be the same.
Hmm.
She suffered brain anoxia, a heart issue, kidney damage, had epilepsy, and hearing loss. And so it was like the next couple of years were literally holding up the sky, to protect her. That's the title of the book.
Right.
And so the inspiration was both her birth and this problem. And also, I had realized a couple of years after she was born that I was breaking a vow that I had made myself 10 years earlier when looking back on my own life and my own father, who was not equipped to be a father, the kind of guy who watched his house burn down when he was 5 years old,
Mhm.
then was raised by a mother with seven other brothers and sisters. She raised them by herself. And then the depression hit. I mean, it was just really a tough life. And I
Right.
understand that. But he just didn't have the tools to be a father. And I just vowed, I'm not going to be a father like that. I've got to, I want to be a different kind of dad, somebody who's going to light up the darkness with my eyes, and
Yes.
with my kids. And so but I learned after Catherine was born that I was becoming like my father. I was becoming defensive, and I was becoming paranoid, and I was, in trying holding up the sky and protecting her, I was realizing that I wasn't being the father that I wanted to be. So
Mm.
that hit me one day, in a particular moment, and that was the inspiration for writing the book.
Wow. So, was there anything in particular that brought you to that realization?
Yes, yeah, I mean, exactly. There was a moment when several years after Catherine was born, she managed to get through. We were giving her meds 24/7 every 2 hours.
Mm.
That finally tapered off. And then we got to the point where okay, we can have a third child. Catherine had an older sister already, so that we're going to resuscitate the idea of being parents.
Hmm.
So with our third child, and Eric was born, and he was like, we called him Mr. Wonderful for the first couple of years because he was so much easier than his sister Catherine. But then life had a lot of bumps. I mean, it was very difficult to deal with Catherine. She could have, with a cold, she could have died. We had to be protective of her. One day, everything went wrong. I was distraught. I was carrying Eric in my left arm. I walked through the living room. There were a bunch of empty boxes in the living room, and I had a meltdown. I started kicking the boxes. I started, cursing the sky. I was, twisting and turning and kicking boxes like my father had taught me to do. And
Mm.
I almost threw Eric through the room, just in a twist of my body. And I realized, oh my God, I've gone over the line. I had to take a knee. I had to count to 20. And that's when I realized that these circumstances were driving a stake right through the heart of my vow to be a different kind of dad. That was the moment. Yeah. And sort of recounted in the book as well, one of the chapters.
I think that
So,
I think that even though it was a hard moment, it was so necessary, and thank God it happened because you wouldn't have been aware. That awareness was so key.
yeah, that's right. I mean, it was a kind of a crisis moment.
Mhm.
I had never thought of that actually, Maria. You're right that if it hadn't happened, no telling what course I might have followed.
Yes.
So yeah, it's an interesting point.
Yeah, having that awareness was everything. And sometimes, especially when we're in moments of crisis and facing so many difficulties, we don't have awareness. We're just barely surviving, getting through.
You do what
So,
you have to do,
yes,
exactly. And you rarely have the opportunity to step back, get perspective, take the deep breath,
right.
try to take the long view when you're you're holding on by your fingernails.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not easy.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So what do you think the main lesson that you've learned through these years of fatherhood would be, or a couple of the main lessons that you learned?
Well, I guess the first thing I would say is, in a way, learning lessons, we're always looking back to our experience.
Mhm.
Okay. But just by the very nature of it, you look back and you're trying to fix a template that you were received about being a father.
Right.
And you have to adjust that to the circumstances that you have, but you have to base it on the experience that you had. So it's kind of a backward view. And I learned that I have to sometimes unlearn those lessons, okay, from my
Yes.
father, for instance, who was in his heart, he was a sweet guy, but he had a rough sandpaper exterior, and it's could be very difficult, be authoritarian, could
Mm,
be a Marine, and that's not the guy I wanted to be.
right.
So one lesson was, you know, just looking back, realizing that I have to change some things and understanding that the things I change are going to are going to make a template that my kids will have to correct.
Right.
Okay. As we move forward, because
Yes.
you're never quite perfect for the moment. You
Mhm.
try. And, another thing was that, particularly with uh, two disabilities in the family. So I have three kids.
Okay.
Alana was the first. She's, today she's a brain scientist. Okay. She just took off like a rocket. Her younger sister, Catherine, then was the one who got very ill. And so she has a disability, lots of disabilities, actually. And then Eric, although he was Mr. Wonderful the first 2 years, turned up about 18 months with a very serious a hearing loss more serious than his sister's.
Wow.
So with those kinds of disabilities and the range of abilities among the kids, made it for me very difficult to know where to draw the line, where to put, this throw down. Okay, you can't go beyond this. I'm sorry, no second tries. Okay,
Yeah.
I told you how to do it. You have to do it.
Mhm.
Those things were very hard. It was very blurry because you never know. Well, how much of it was a disability? I mean, maybe they didn't hear me, or maybe she didn't understand because of comprehension issues and stuff like that. So another lesson was that um, about that difficulty of drawing the line and sticking to it. And comes with that the idea that you need patience. You have to be patient because it's not their fault all the time, and you have to remember you're
Mm,
dealing with with special circumstances,
yes.
and that you can't win all the arguments. You have to play the long game. And I mean, I don't haven't mentioned it, but Linda and I, my wife Linda and I, we had different takes on how to handle the kids. She's a New York City girl. I'm a California boy.
Oh,
we, we had a very different orientation,
yes.
but we managed to stick together. I mean, we celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary last July, so it was like,
Congratulations. That's
thank you,
amazing.
thank
Wow.
you, thank you. So, and I guess the last lesson I would say, the sort of the takeaway is that the bottom line all the way through it was developing trust with the kids. The kids trusted me, and I trusted the kids, and that got us through a lot of difficult moments, and became a kind of our little vehicle for learning all the way through the journey. So yeah, those are main lessons. Unlearning from the past and the difficulty of drawing a line, having patience, and having trust.
That's beautiful. I love it. The trust is so important because so many people don't trust their kids and they show very much that they don't trust them. And then the kids, they don't feel trusted, so they act up, and it just causes so much heartache for everyone.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
It's very, very difficult. And when they get in their teen years and they're getting independent, it's like you actually hear it. You don't trust me, kind of
Yes.
thing.
Yes.
You have to work your way through those moments. But I think that you know, I'm I'm not a Marine kind of guy. It's more I'm just compositionally, I'm just not like that. And my heart's on my sleeve a little bit. And so, I always identified with the kids, particularly when they were having their hard moments and getting through difficult times with their disabilities and
Hmm.
being, like when Eric was in the fifth grade, he's standing in line on the playing field, waiting to his turn to do something or another. And a little girl in his class comes and cuts in front of him on the line. And he said, well, what's up? And she looked at his hearing aids and she says, well, I'm perfect and you're not. You
Oh,
know, I tell you, when I heard that story, I was just, my heart was wrapped around that kid.
yes, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah. There are many other, there are many, many stories like that where the stigma of hearing aids and of disabilities and they don't understand and they can't hear. And, so you, you wrap your arms around them and you understand that every minute of their lives they're becoming something,
Mm.
and you have to be present for that becoming. You have to participate in it as a dad. So um, yeah, it's
So how do you respond to that when your son comes home and says something that heartbreaking to you? How do you shore him up? How do you
well, it's
know
it's
that
the
he is
it's
perfect the way he
yeah.
is?
That's the mechanics of trust. You just sit him on your lap and you wrap your arms around him and say, "My God, man, that's just not right,"
Right.
and try to give him the perspective. Another story with Eric was that he was, he witnessed it. I took him to a ball game once, a AAA ball game out in Baltimore. And there was a child in the audience not far from us in the same row who was acting out. He had very, very difficult behavioral issues, might have been autistic. I don't know, on the spectrum somehow. But he was hitting his dad and throwing a Coke and, passed by us and jostled us with seemingly no awareness. And Eric was just stunned because he saw some of his own outbursts in this other child, and then so we had another, special moment where you sort of get down eye level with him and say, Eric, yeah, some kids have it even tougher than you, and you have to understand that you have to work your way through this and be sure and tap into your feelings and let me know how you feel about it. He was in tears already during this conversation, but it was another hugging moment. I'm here,
Yeah,
I'm supporting you. So yeah, that's part of being present and sort of earning that trust, I think,
absolutely.
when you go through those kind of critical moments.
Hmm.
Many stories like that for Catherine as well, because she with all of the disabilities that she had to work with or to cope with, created a lot of issues for her. Stuff
Yeah.
like saying, "Dad, when I first meet somebody, they think I'm big, but after they get to know me, they think I'm small." You know, because either she couldn't hear them or she didn't understand the situation or couldn't comprehend the conversation that was going on, that kind of thing. And yeah, it's the same deal. Or she said that when her sister was old enough to be thinking about college, Catherine was in the kitchen one day and she slammed her books down on the table and she said, I'm going to make something of myself. She said, bam, the books hit the table. And then I sat down with her and we were, again, eye to eye. And she looked at me kind of dolefully, and she says, Dad, if I hadn't been sick, could I have gone to Yale?
Uh-huh.
So she wasn't even expected to graduate from high school, but she graduated from high school, by God, and even got into community college. So it was an amazing accomplishment for her. But
Hmm.
she still had this idea about moving further, and she was, strong enough to admit to me, to disclose this idea, this dream that
Yes.
she didn't even know what it meant. All she knew was her sister was thinking about Yale. Okay,
Right.
and we'd visited the campus and stuff like that. And I said, honey, if you had been sick, you could have done anything. You could have. The sky was the limit. But remember what your mom tells you. It's also effort. It's not just ability. It's that
Yes.
part of what you are is what you try to do and what you can do.
Hmm.
And
Wow.
She shook her head, and we turned back to the to the math problem she was working on. So it's
Amazing. I
yeah,
love how you acknowledge your children's emotions, that even in this aware and awakened society, there are many people who don't let their children express their emotions and they dismiss them, and
yep,
instead of acknowledging, the child says, I'm afraid, or whatever the child is feeling, whether it's valid or not in our eyes, any person, it doesn't even have to be a child, that's what that child is feeling.
yeah,
And
exactly.
so, but in acknowledging them just makes that trust so much more, because now they know they can go to you with anything. Doesn't matter
Yeah,
what it is. And
yeah,
there you
yeah.
are.
Yeah,
Right?
no, that's I think that's exactly right, Marion. And also, our society these days, there's the idea about masculinity. You can't show it, right? You got to be tough. Somebody has to be strong in the field, and that's important. I mean, we do as fathers, we do have to be strong. At certain, we do have to show that we can carry through. We soldier on,
Yes.
but I think it's also very important to not only acknowledge your children's vulnerabilities and be there for them, but also to show your own. It doesn't mean you're necessarily weak. It just means that you're feeling it as
Yes.
well, and you can still soldier on. I mean, I think
That's right. Yes.
I guess I might even put that in the lesson category. For
That is a lesson. I remember, even as a mother, because my kids have pointed out, they're grown now. We went to the ER a couple of times, stitches, the whole thing. And they were always
yeah,
like, Mom, you always look so calm and you weren't upset. And inside I was dying, but the outside you look like, oh yeah, we're going to go to the emergency room and this is going to be just fine. And they feel the comfort of, you're not
yeah,
falling apart. They
exactly,
don't know what's
exactly.
going on inside. But then
Yeah,
later, as they get older, also you
yeah,
show them more of the vulnerability. And then I said to
yeah.
them, you have no idea what I was feeling like inside, but I had
Right,
to be brave for you. And so
right,
that's the same kind of thing. That's
right, right,
very
right.
nice. So let's talk for a minute about what role authenticity has played for you in all of this.
Well, I think we were talking about it already. I mean, because I think being authentic is being who you are and what you feel, and so showing it to the kids in the right moments, not always,
Mhm.
but and not buckling, but admitting that when you're fearful or uncertain or uh, weak, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't solve the problem or get through. And so that's kind of an authenticity, I think, that's really important, and behind the foundation of trust that was being laid down through the years with my kids. Is they knew who I was,
Right.
and they were able to to we were able to interact with each other at that level. And so I think it's probably one of in fact, I closed the book. I have the last chapter in the book I'm having a conversation with my father, who's
Oh,
already gone. Okay. And so it's like his ghost is talking to me. And the whole, I said to him, Dad, sometimes I think you would have been better for my kids than I was
mm,
because you laid down the law. you know. And then he would, I'm sure what he would have said back to me says, yeah, but you built a sense of trust with your kids that I wish I had with you,
yeah.
so that I think looking back, having written the book, it took 10 years to do that, required a lot of, it was cathartic, of course, and a lot of reflection and a lot of tears on the keyboard
Yeah.
and stuff, but that I was never in doubt that I was I was truthful with the kids, and that was authentically me. So I think that um, I think that being true to your core and those feelings, whatever they are, and your strengths and weaknesses, whatever they are, is really fundamental to establishing a relationship and getting through problems.
I agree, Jim. And authenticity is thrown and flung around everywhere today, but to find someone who really lives that, who really truly shows you who they are, like you're showing us today. That's a fabulous thing. And that's why I wanted you on the show because that's very important to me. And we grow so much when we can fully step into who we really are. And you're also modeling it for your children.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm no angel. I made plenty of mistakes, and I hope I'll go to heaven, but you never know. Maybe I'll get questioned on some authentic grounds, but you know, you have to try. You,
Yes,
you have to try, and you have to.
absolutely.
I'm not a religious guy, and so that's that's not me. That's not where I get my source of strength.
Hmm.
But it's a it's a sense that I don't know. We were given life. We're not here very long, and the kids becoming adults. Every minute they're around you, every minute they're alive. Is You don't want to squander that. You want you
Yeah.
want to make them help them be the best that they can be. And that was always with me. I think it was maybe it's my father's sternness and my mother's softness. That's helped me get to this place.
Kind of a
So
middle ground there. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
That's really good. So, why is writing about life so important to you?
Well, I think that uh, for one thing, it was I had to get this out of my. It was a therapy for myself.
Hmm.
That was one really important thing. Uh, as I said, tears on the keyboard. Working through with the kids themselves. They knew I was writing the book. I discussed it a lot with them. Right up till 2 weeks ago, my son said, "Dad, I think you really ought to change this part right here that deals with me." So
It's already published.
I said, "Oh God,
That's
now
progress.
tomorrow I'm going back to the studio to change a paragraph, to add a couple of sentences that Eric wanted me to change." And he's right. I can see the reason for it. And um, but also I saw, besides for the self-therapy thing, I saw I had several experiences where I came across other dads
Hmm.
who were having their moment, like the dad in the ball game that Eric witnessed with the child who was on the spectrum. I saw a dad once at a pool who had a very difficult child, probably brain damaged child, and he was like an angel. This guy was amazing. I
Wow.
said, I could. It was hard for me to even interact with the guy because my emotions were right at my throat. I just didn't know if I could even talk to the guy because I saw he was going through what I was going through. And I felt like, and then later on, I read somewhere that there are like 25 million families in America that have some form of disability in
Wow.
them. And I thought, well, okay. And maybe it's worth sharing my story. Maybe there'll be some small nugget in there or some shred of help that might be useful for other dads or other parents. So that's another reason why the writing is important and why I sort of wanted to get the book out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's so wonderful when you are going through something, whatever it might be that's difficult, to know that someone else is also going through it and that they're making through it. They're doing their best. That's all we can do. It's
Yeah.
always so wonderful. It's such a wonderful feeling that we're not alone. And that's
Yes.
writing is so important. One of the reasons I write and so many people write because whatever experiences are there, we share them.
Yes.
And sometimes
Yeah.
I feel that once we have it out, we're kind of sharing that burden. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. That and you sharing the burden and you understand. I mean, I start to tell my story and then you hear the other person's story, the person I'm speaking with. And said, well, everybody's got a story. It's always different, but
Yes,
there are always challenges in the story. There are tough spots. There are harrowing emotional moments that people get through, and that's part of being human, and helping each other.
I
So
agree. I agree so much, Tim. Thank you. So, do you have new projects in the works?
I do. I'm, I in the course of writing this thing, the Holding Up the Sky book, I had sometimes I had moments of doubt, whether it was right, whether it was right for the reader, right for me, right for the family.
Hmm.
And so I took some time and went off on a different path and started a couple of other manuscripts. One on the Peace Corps. When I was in the 60s, I was in Costa Rica, and it was an experience that was very strong and really sort of confirmed the direction in life that I was going.
Hmm.
And then some years later, I started another one, which is about my working world. I mean, I worked for 40 years on poverty in the developing world
Wow.
and in cities. And there are lots and lots of just anecdotal stories that, um, you know, walking through a neighborhood ravaged by a civil war in Sri Lanka, or squatter settlement in Brazil where the drug lords had taken over and everybody was living in fear. I was never in danger, but I could see the difficulties that people were going through, and sort of what it did for me. I would come back from some of those places, particularly looking at children the ages of my own who had very, very difficult circumstances, living in the mud, and death around them and disease around them. And and it made me feel, first place, it was very hard to take because of, I was thinking of my kids. And then when I got back, I valued my kids even more, because they were protected from this kind of stuff.
That's right.
So the fatherhood book, Holding Up the Sky, it has this little work business in the background. The next book will have the working business in the foreground with the family in the background. So
Very
yeah,
nice. I love
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So is there one last thing we have, like maybe 5 more minutes? Is there one last thing that you'd like to say to listeners, something that's on your heart today?
Well, one thing I'd like to say is thank you, Mari, for making this possible. We really connected, I think, and it's wonderful to have an outlet to talk with you, um, and to feel like you're engaged and understanding. That's very encouraging, for an author like me. And uh, I guess the only other thing I would, if people are interested in the book, just to go
Yes.
to holdingupthesky.net, not
Okay.
.com, but .net, all in one word, holdingupthesky.net. It comes out the 1st of October in the next week, actually, or a little bit after next week,
Yeah.
um, in as an ebook, and then it'll be in paper shortly after that, if not the same day. And also, I narrated the entire thing as
Oh,
well.
wow.
Yeah.
That's a
So
lot.
yeah, that was a lot of work.
A lot. Wow.
700 minutes in the studio. I learned a lot there. I'll tell you that.
Whoa. That
So I'm very grateful for having this outlet to get my message out. Thank you so much.
it's been my pleasure, Tim. And the website will be right here on the link. Just look down. You can click right into there. Can they pre-order now? We have to wait till the first.
No, you can pre-order now.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you can
And
pre-order right now,
yeah,
and
you'd have to wait for the first to get the paper version.
right,
Yeah.
pre-order. Okay,
Yeah.
fantastic. So it's been such a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for sharing from your heart and so authentically. I can always tell that. And listeners, thank you for listening in, and pass this on. If something here strikes you, if you know people who are parents of disabled children or in any way can be touched by this, please spread this on. Thank you so much for listening in to Dare to Be Authentic podcast. Bye for now.